So we had this discussion about, boat works and even Encinal terminals, and my recollection is those were in past housing elements. I mean, what's the success rate of winning that argument, that even though we put these, because my understanding is if it's in one element, you can't just reuse that as availability or reasonable capacity in the next element, because otherwise people would just keep punting it down the line, right? So, I mean, well, first, what is the chances that we're going to be able to include those? And if we don't, I mean,
I'm able
I think the answer is kind of obvious, but I'd like to hear it from you. I mean, what do we do about those, however many units, 700 or 161, 180,
Yep.
You
Good
kind of
question.
get the gist of the question.
Yeah, it's a great question, Councilmember Oddie. The laws on this have changed since we did our last housing element. And as you said, the logic of the law makes sense. And if you think of it from the state's perspective, don't tell us the site is available if you told us it was available 8 years ago and it didn't get developed. I mean, something must be wrong. It must clearly not be available if it sat there vacant for 8 years when you said it was going to be available. So no, we're not going to accept it anymore. The strategy that I will recommend to all of you is that we embrace that concept with some, like for Boatworks, for example. We listed it before. We acknowledge, yes, you are right. That didn't get developed. We discovered a problem. And then our city council in 2019, or right at the beginning of COVID, whatever that was, 2020, took a whole series of decisions in cooperation with the property owner, Boatworks, to make this project, basically to unleash it, to unconstrain it. So please, pretty please, HCD, accept it. Because we honestly believe with this change. And what we did last year or 8 years ago, I mean, in some cases we provided actual letters from the property owner saying, yes, I am available. If this goes forward, I will be building housing on this site in the next years. And I'm hoping that with that kind of support, we will be able to get a site like Boatworks counted, even though we counted it before. If we don't, if HCD rejects it, it just makes our life a little bit harder. It's another 181 units we need to find a home for somewhere else. Now, that being said,
that's 580, right?
And then Encinal Terminals is another 580, which, we have the same problem. We do plan to come to the council in the near future to see if this council would be willing to reconsider the Tidelands exchange, because that's why that site has remained undeveloped for the last 8 years. It needs that Tidelands exchange.
Okay, then let's chat a little bit about